Okay, everybody, so this is the fifth video lecture on the chapter of theory, human growth and development. In this one, I want to at least talk about contextual, and maybe not get to the next chapter on evolutionary psychology. All right, so contextual theory, and remember, we're talking about the different ways in which we study, understand, try to explain the process of moving from birth to death, or the life course, right? So this theory is sort of close to my heart because it is a big picture theory. What we mean by contextual theory, sort of the framer of this theory, is a person by the last name of Bronfenbrenner, which is a fun word to say. And basically what the theory says is that it's not fair or reasonable to study human development outside of the larger social context, right? And so they use this concept of bioecological theory. If you think about ecology, right, maybe you've taken ecology in high school. Ecology refers to the larger environment. So your bioecological theory argues that a person's biological development or relationship has influence or is influenced by the larger social environment or the larger environment per se. So that because that could be the social environment, including the people, it could be the built environment, including the neighborhood and the housing, but it could also be the ecological environment, such as literally, do you live in the mountains or do you live in the desert? Do you live where places are polluted or where the water is clean, right? But Bronfenbrenner used this model here and and it's similar to what I talk about in my sociology. I talk about different agents of socialization, but the idea that the individual exists one level of their environment is what he called the microsystem. These are your immediate environmental interactions you have. So this would be the people you see every day, the house that you live in, maybe where you go to work, maybe not, right? But this is your microsystem, and the people in your microsystem influence your development. In that microsystem, do you have food to eat? Is there domestic violence? Do people care about your emotional well-being? Right. Then the next level out, right? This is the mesosystem, and this is the place where your microenvironment, your family life, connects with the larger society. So these are the linkages between everyday settings, like, make sure I got this right. This might be your school, right? Your school setting or your neighborhood setting, right? So it's outside your microenvironment. You probably interact with this on a daily basis. Then you have this setting beyond that, right? These would be examples like where your parents work or the board of education at your school. They have where your parents work has direct implications for your microenvironment. If your parents are working in a place they like, that is going to make your microenvironment better, right? As opposed to if your parents work a long ways away, if they're unhappy in their job. All of those, the different layers of systems have systems. They have implications for what happens in your larger environment. When you go to school in your meso environment, right, what that school experience is like is going to have implications for you when you get back home. I hope I'm making some sort of sense, right? So these larger systems out. Then you have the macro environment, and so this would involve like the whole of the larger economy, the political system, the military, the culture that you live in. So you can use a good example would be where I live. So I live in Manhattan. It's a military town. When the military, which is part of the macro environment, when the military gets deployed, that affects the job of some of the young people that live in Manhattan. And then when my children were small, they were going to school with the children whose parents were deployed. So even though I am not a military family, my microsystem there were implications in my microsystem when my child's best friend's father was deployed by the Army, right, which is the macro system. So the point is, and this is what I like about this theory, is that all of these things are connected, that we really cannot separate ourselves from these larger social forces. We kind of want to believe that we can protect each other in a way and influence our development. But what this theory says is there's lots of things that are affecting lots of things, and it's all much more complicated. And then the last system here is what we would call your chrono system, the time in human history that in which a person is coming of age, right? I mean, a development is going to look different for us in 2023 than it looked in 1923. We're still going to have all of these. We're going to have your microsystem and your mesosystem and your ecosystem. But those systems are going to be very different in 1923 than they are in 2023. So anyway, the whole sort of contextual. Okay, the last one, I think I have enough. I try to limit these as much as I can. The last theory here is evolutionary or sociobiological theory. Two ways of basically saying the same thing. But what maybe you've heard of Charles Darwin or Herbert Spencer. Darwin was studying how the animals and plants adaptation to changes in the environment, including like sunlight and soil and water and the availability of food. Spencer took the ideas of Darwin and tried to apply them to people. So if you've heard the phrase survival of the fittest, right, that is not Darwin. That was actually Spencer. And what Spencer said, what Spencer was explaining, was he was taking those same notions of Charles Darwin about the birds and the beaks on one side of the Galapagos Islands versus the other side of the Galapagos Islands, and he was applying that to people. And he said that the people that are the most fit, and by fit, we're not talking physically fit and strong and can run, but we're talking about the fit are people who can adapt. They can find a different job. They can take they can shift their personality. They can change maybe the way they look. These are the people that are the most fit. They're the ones that can change to fit in the environment. The survival of those who fit the best in the social environment in any particular place at any particular time, right? This is what we meant by social adaptation. In this case over here, right, in the context of human development, we talk about social adaptation, but we also have many examples of literally our physical adaptation. So this image is about some vestibular structures in the human body. Basically, they're like structures that are left over that no longer serve a function. The idea of evolutionary theory applying to development suggests that some of the ways that we act today are left over from our ancient ancestors, that these were characteristics and qualities that promoted the survival of the Homo sapiens sapiens species. And those who had these qualities, they survived and passed those genes on. So let me give you what are the ones I have here? Why are babies so cute? One evolutionary explanation about why babies are so cute is because they require a tremendous amount of attention. And just like in the animal kingdom, right, the mothers can be motivated not to take care of their babies. But, if you've ever heard a mother say, oh, the babies, they smell so good, that helps us take care of them and devote so much energy to them because they're just so cute and they smell so good. Babies really give, in terms of the survival of the group, they give the group nothing. They just take resources. There has to be some reason why we spend so much energy taking care of them. Another one is like why teenagers are so snarky, right? Like if you think about if you're a teenager, right? A lot of parents will say that man, you just don't. My mama used to say that she taught 8th grade, and that she loved them because nobody else would, right? The teenagers are awful. And the conflict that parents have between their teenagers. Well, one evolutionary psychology argues that the reason there's conflict between parent and child during their teenage years is because this is what influences them to eventually leave home. If you loved your mother, if you adored your mother at 16, the way you did when you were 4, right? You might never leave home. And the same thing as if your mother adored you at 16, 17, 18, the way she did when you were 4, she might never let you go home. So, from an evolutionary perspective, if young people, if children are ever to launch and leave home, we have to kind of prepare for that, right? Another one is old fashioned term. Why are older women so randy? In other words, why are old women so horny? And this is because they're right, according to evolutionary psychology, right, if she has not made babies yet, right, by the time she's getting to her late 40s, her mid to late 40s, then now is her last time. And so nature sort of motivates her to have more sex before she is no longer capable of making babies. But the whole theory here is that the behaviors that we see throughout the life course have been passed on genetically because they promoted our human survival, because they promoted our species. I'm going to stop it right here. That was the end of the last theoretical perspective. Next, I'm going to talk about research methods in it.